one and all. Welcome to Monster Kid Playground. I am your host, Danvers, aka John Faust. And today we're doing a little road trip. I'm here with my bestie, Patti Neff Tiven. Hello, Patti.
Hello, Danvers.
Hello. So we have just come from Hooper's, which is the Texas Chain Saw Massacre restaurant. What did you think, Patti?
It was okay. It's the house, that's for sure.
It's the house. We were not the only nerds there, which was comforting.
Absolutely not.
Our waitress was cool.
She was good. Oh, yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
I really liked her. Should have got her name and done a shout out. But
yeah, that's true.
I don't think I had.
So, we Googled like the whole thing before we started this recording, and evidently back in 2022 they changed up the restaurant. So like when I was researching this, did look at, I guess, outdated menu information, because they did like a barbecue restaurant, which seems far more fitting.
Yeah. I thought that's what it was, but it's like Southern comfort food, chicken fried steak and the like.
Yeah. So I had a chicken sandwich with like fried jalapenos. So if I have a heart attack between here and home, that's why. And you had
we had fried mushrooms.
We had fried mushrooms.
I had breakfast, which was like biscuits and gravy with eggs on top and cheese, and it was tasty. And the fried potatoes. And then we had a slice of chocolate cake.
That's right.
Because that's what you follow breakfast with, chocolate cake.
It's not quite what you imagine the Texas Chainsaw experience to be, but it was good. It was fine.
Yeah.
And I had enough sweet tea that I'm sure we'll pause this podcast 30 times between now and Austin so that I can pee. Oh, speaking of which, so we are in the car. We do have our microphones secured to us in a moving vehicle kind of manner, so we're not being unsafe. But if you hear a kind of drone throughout this, you get to experience the road trip with us. So
it's like comedians in the cars getting coffee, but it's
exactly
John's doing horror fans in a car getting Hoopers.
That's correct. That's a good way to put it. So those of you, the podcast is fairly new. If you've followed Demented Features or me in any way, shape, or form, Patti and I were co-artistic directors of Weird City Theater Company in Austin. We started in 2008, and I guess officially I've kind of said we've ended around 2019.
It has never ended.
2019, 20. Well, I mean, I guess it's still going.
2022. No,
but like
20.
It's easier to say we kind of ended in 2020 because of COVID.
Sure, yeah. That's what happened.
Other than I had a fucking fallout with everybody. But that's neither here nor there. But Patti and I, so when we were doing Weird City, our whole shtick was pop culture and like mystery and horror. And that's the kind of shows that we did. My first show with Patti, which of course, it's become a cliche now, was Night of the Living Dead. Because I think every fucking podcast I do, I talk about Night of the Living Dead.
Because it's what we're talking about. And then we did it again.
We've actually, I have crafted a beautiful coffee table book.
So exciting.
That is available now on Amazon. I'll leave a link in whatever description, whether this is on Spotify or YouTube. But it's the revised script, and there's all kinds of photographs from both shows, and I'm actually quite proud of the little coffee table.
It looks gorgeous. I can't wait.
So anyway, I got one for Patti. It just hasn't arrived yet, so
exciting.
I showed her the digital images. Anyway. So Patti and I have been together for a while as creative colleagues. She's my theater wife.
That's right, my other husband.
So on other podcasts, like people have talked about other guests, like our Monster Kid influences and kind of what made us who we are now.
Yes.
So, I've talked about loving silent film and Dracula and Frankenstein and those early Universal stuff. But we have one thing in common as far as theater goes that was highly influential on us in our formative years.
Yes.
So, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
What brought me to theater?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know what I'm alluding to, but like, we could start earlier than that, too.
Yeah, well, one of our big ones, the two of us saw The Dark Shadows at one time. That was my first experience of sort of episodic TV that, I was seeing it later for sure.
Well,
it was hip and cool.
We both saw Dark Shadows, like, when it went back into syndication in the early 80s.
In the 90s, do you recall that they did The Dark Shadows with Ben Cross?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Obsessed.
Oh, no, I was absolutely, and I was so pissed off because they kept changing the time it would be aired because the Gulf War was going on.
Yeah, and you had to be in front of the TV back then.
Right.
You had to be there when it started.
Right.
I was obsessed, and
like you
never
couldn't
missed a thing.
If you did have a recording device to record it on VHS,
right,
you were super fancy. Mm-hmm. But like you couldn't plan for it because it kept getting preempted, or
Yes.
And ultimately, that's why it kind of like was canceled, just because it couldn't find a footing.
Yeah, it didn't
but it
find
was
its audience.
really a great. It was a great.
It found two
update.
of us. It
found
found two of us for sure. Yeah, I remember The Dark Shadows, and then I honestly, the thing that got me into the older horror and stuff like that was that I had two older brothers.
Yeah.
And one of them had this book. It was a paperback book that was missing its cover. So to this day, I don't know what this book was called, but it was all Hammer monsters and all these movies from, the silent film up until, I think that one went up to the 50s.
Was it a hardback book or a paperback
It was a paperback.
Okay.
And I'm obsessed. I would love to find it again because it had pictures from London after midnight, and I knew that's missing. And all sorts of, really crazy. And they were all black and white photos because this was an old book.
Yeah.
And it used to just terrify me. And that's where I was seeing my first photos of Dracula. I have the Bela Lugosi version of Dracula and all of those. That's where I learned they existed.
Yep.
And then I went out and had to find those things.
So I'm going to backtrack on 2 points. So one thing, my friend Penny Dreadful, Danielle, who's another horror host,
Yes.
She does a podcast called Terror in Collinwood, where basically she revisits every single episode of Dark Shadows and she's like a super fan.
Yes.
And she's also interviewed a lot of the cast members that are still alive, including the guy who played David.
Oh my God!
So
wow.
for those of you out there listening to this, check out Terror at Collinwood. Also, my interview with Penny Dreadful, and Patty, you check out Terror at Collinwood.
I gotta check this out. Yes.
So this paperback, I had a book called The Encyclopedia of Horror, which I found at. It's not Barnes and Noble. It was something Davis. That was in Memphis.
In Memphis. I don't know if I know.
Anyway, it was a bookstore, and I remember I was probably 8 years old and saw this, and I begged for it. I got it for my birthday, and it's one of the few things I still have from my childhood.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book, and it kind of reminded me of what you were talking about. It had all these things about Hammer and the different horror movies and different. Pre-code horror comics and things like that. Anyway, it's an insane great book. Anyway, so you and your brother go. I kind of interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. So anyways, this book I kept it forever, and it was just a tattered. Just the paper was turned to dust. It was so tattered and ripped up and missing pages. And if I could ever find that book again, I swear to God, if I knew what the damn title was, that would help. But it was amazing. And so, but that led me to all these different movies, knowing those were out there and that they were legitimately scary. There was a whole section, I think it was divided into sections like vampire stories and then werewolves and whatever. It was so rad. I think it might have been a British book too, because the language was different. And I'm talking, I wasn't even able to read yet when I first got this book, and I would just look at the pictures and be terrified The Abominable Dr. Fives, which was later. But anyways, it was like crazy. So that kind of got me into all of those things and realizing that I liked the monsters and the scary stuff.
Yeah.
And my first horror film that actually legitimately scared me, I think I was about 7 when I saw The Shining for the first time.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a good movie for a 7-year-old.
To this day, that is still my top horror flick. I think really because I saw it at 7 and I have never gotten over it. Because I was terrified for millions of years now about going into bathrooms in hotels.
Yeah.
I cannot do it.
I can imagine. But it's like, it's weird how things affect us, because I didn't see The Exorcist for the first time until I was 18.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I saw that until I was a teen.
That affected me even at that age. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So, I think that, but I can't remember like I do know what one of the earliest things I saw was. So I remember the 1970, I want to say 76 or 77 BBC version of Dracula was on.
Is this the one that was the play?
No. Okay. So, but it came out kind of while the play was on Broadway with Frank Langella. This came on probably riding the coattails of it, but it was like a little mini series. It had the French guy from, he was in Octopussy.
I don't know this.
Oh.
I will say, let me just put a pin in this, that the first play I ever saw was that Dracula, just not with Frank Langella. It was a touring company that came through. I saw a tour of it or a special presentation of it. It was the first play I ever saw.
Oh, that's amazing.
Lucky.
But this BBC production of this Dracula, I remember, so I think my dad or my mom was flipping through channels, and they came upon the part where where Jonathan Harker sees Dracula give this baby to the brides.
Mm-hmm.
And it was horrifying. And they do this thing where they cut away and they come back and their eyes are red and they've got blood all over them. And I mean, I was little and it scared the Jesus out of me.
Yeah, they're not supposed to do babies. Back when we were kids, a lot of horror films, if they messed with kids, they never killed the kids.
No, but I mean, they ate
even
this
Dracula
baby.
does.
So, but it's like, things that scare us fascinate us.
Yes.
So, I mean, that, it's kind of the gateway drug into the bigger
It's
thing.
so funny, too, because I go, even now, as an awful-ass adult, I love watching horror movies, but my husband does not like horror movies. He is so squeamish about everything.
My husband doesn't like horror movies either. So.
You can get roped in. But, my husband will not watch them with me, so it's on my own that I ever get to see anything. And I, saw Hereditary. That is one.
Yes.
Messed me up for a week solid, and Seth wasn't home, so I was like, oh, this is when I can watch this. And oh my God. And immediately I go, why did I do this to myself? I am still like that 7-year-old who's like, well, now I'm not going to sleep and I have to leave all the lights on.
Have you ever seen Last House on the Left?
I actually have not. I have avoided Last House on the Left.
It has this reputation of just screwing you up for, forever.
Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty brutal.
And I remember watching it, and I mean, yeah, it's intense. But then I remember, Kevin is my husband, I go to Kevin and I'm like, this is supposed to, really screw with you. And I mean, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And I'm like, am I really that jaded? And Kevin's like, yes, you are.
I was going to say, possibly.
So, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, we as theater people and movie people, we know how all this stuff works.
Yeah. That's my favorite.
And so it's like, you're always constantly trying to find that thing that gives you that original visceral reaction, because there's a rush to it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
that's chasing that high.
Yeah, it's hard to find those anymore.
I will say my last big favorite, Hereditary now almost edged out The Shining as my truly a scary horror movie that scared me, and I love it and everything about it. So it's up there.
Yeah.
But I really, really, less for the scares, but more for the, oh my God, this is exactly what I see in my head, was the Eggers Nosferatu.
Oh, yeah.
Mwah, that movie was made for me.
It was...
Don't fight me, John Kerry.
Oh, no. It was beautiful. And so I talked about this in a previous podcast of, like, you know, some people I've heard, like, what's Johnny Depp's daughter's name?
Rose.
Okay. So, like, and I agree, there were some moments where I didn't quite believe her. And I think a lot of it is just that she went through, like, the you know, crazy
right
thing, but she had to do that 3 or 4 times, and it's like, how do you top that so many
every
times?
time? Right.
But I mean, I
will say that if anything, she was my weakest link. But that character is so difficult.
Yes, but I mean,
as written anyways.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still fantastic. But I mean, like, if you're splitting hairs here, but Holt, whatever his name is, the guy who played Thomas Hutter.
Yes.
His reaction, you know, in the castle is, I think, the first time I've seen genuine, real fear in an actor that played that way.
Yeah.
That it's not like you're just like, I'm playing scared. I mean, I really believed it.
Yeah, really. So that only partially came up for me because you were talking about that scene in the BBC Dracula. And that was the only thing that I wished that this Nosferatu had in it was the wives, Dracula's wives.
Yeah.
I missed that, but I was like, you know, they still did such an outstanding job taking that source material and making something relatively new and interesting.
I do wish, and I understand the reasons probably why they didn't, but I wish they would have given us some of the iconic moments, like him, you know, foot first raising out of the coffin on the ship, or like going across the bow of the ship, you know, looking down into the hold. Those are iconic moments.
But now we have a new iconic moment where we saw Nosferatu's ding
dong. So yeah,
you got to take some.
It's true. I will say, like, you know, we both seen the Werner Herzog version.
Yes, I actually immediately went back and rewatched that after seeing this.
Which, I mean,
and then I went,
you
wow,
know,
that didn't hold up.
Well,
it's very sad when I realized
it's very sad. It's also like production. There were some things happening that I'm aware of that kind of take away from my enjoyment of the movie now.
Yeah, now.
But I will say, you know, in the original, of course, they didn't have advanced special effects, so he just kind of disappears, and it is what it is for the time period in 22. In the 77 version, you know, he just kind of like has a fit and then dies. I love that he, in this one, just becomes the skeleton on top of her.
So horrifying, too.
It was horrifying.
And that's what it really, really should be. I was so... And then also the cat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Favorite moment when he picked up the cat, I went, well, of course the cat was watching.
Of course.
It's my favorite second. The minute that movie was over, as he was dying, I was in the theater with my fist, biting my fist because I was going, yes, so hard. And it was over. I watched it like on a weekday with 5 other people at a matinee. And the minute the lights were up, I was like, and all these people going, well, I don't know. Well, what did you think? Well, that was weird. And I'm going, yes.
So my favorite, you know, internet thing, my favorite thing to hate, I guess, is it's like you have all these younger people like, oh, I didn't know that it was you know, an old movie. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Can't handle that stuff. It drives me crazy.
But that's, you know, but I will say, you know, that's kind of the point of some of this, is you reintroduce these classics to audiences, new audiences, so that these things kind of don't just become like academic or nerdy. I mean, like, Nosferatu should be celebrated for what it is.
Yeah.
You know, every version.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Look, including my play that you can buy on Amazon right now.
Nosferatu, we did it.
We did do it as a theater company. And, okay, so
Call me Eggers.
Yes.
You want to do Nosferatu too? I'm on.
I had a guy film our production of Nosferatu. And I went, and it was on those old, DV tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was transferring those over at one point. And it's completely unusable because he cut off everybody's head. He just kind of framed the camera and didn't.
And walked away?
And walked away and didn't compensate for the fact that there's a different level.
No, I was about to say I would kill to see this. You're kidding.
So,
oh my God.
Anyway.
Who did that? You don't have to tell
I
me.
don't remember his name, but he was some UT film student that took himself way too seriously.
I don't recall that happening. I was about to say I didn't know there was a tape of it.
So speaking of taking yourself way too seriously, we both grew up in different probably community theater things and so forth. And
sure.
So in Charleston, there was one big one. And for my 16th birthday, I wanted to see Phantom of the Opera so fucking bad. And my parents indulged me probably more than they should have. So we went to New York, we saw Les Mis, and we saw Phantom, and it was just phenomenal. And it's a big spectacle, and say what you want about, different Broadway shows that are like that, but back in the 80s, that was just a thing. It was a time of reinvention.
That's where 1988, we had Les Mis coming out, we had Miss Saigon.
Miss Saigon, yeah.
It was the big Broadway musical with spectacle. That was the thing, yeah.
But, my community theater people took themselves way too seriously. It's they looked down on that kind of stuff, and shamed me for my enjoyment of this. And I'm I wish, and back then you're just trying to play the game and try to get cast and stuff and be part of the theater community. Sure. Now I would have been fuck you.
You got yourself down. Yes, John, oh my God. So I was, honestly, Phantom of the Opera, when it came out, 1980, when it came to New York, it had already been in London.
Right.
When it came out, it had this whole country in a stranglehold, and I was right in it.
Oh,
because
100%.
I recall the Macy's Day Parade where they did a scene from Phantom of the Opera. They did Music of the Night in the middle of, on a float or whatever, in the middle of the thing, and I was ready. I was at the TV. That, it was on every show. Every late night show, at some point, they had Sarah Brightman and Michael Crawford.
So, quick side note here.
Obsessed.
I think the Phantom of the Opera thing on Macy's, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, was the same year they did the Masters of the Universe Macy's Day Thanksgiving.
Was it the same year?
I think it was.
It might have been because I remember seeing both, and I didn't really watch the Macy's
It might have
Parade.
been different years, but it just reminds me of that, thing.
I saw both of those.
And I had known about the Lon Chaney silent film long before this,
right?
And was obsessed with that makeup, and
I don't think beforehand,
right? I don't think I had ever actually seen the movie until it kind of became available on television when the musical came out.
Yeah.
So I kind of discovered both in some ways at the same time, and so I was just doubly obsessed. And I mean, this is pre-internet, of course. So you're reading magazines and books and everything you can get your damn hands on. Because, you love the costumes and the sets and
Michael Crawford.
And Michael Crawford.
Do you know I've seen Michael Crawford in concert?
Oh, have you really?
3 times.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I came to Austin. I lived in San Antonio. We drove to Austin the first time to see him. Then I went to Houston at one point while I was in college to see him. And then I saw him a 3rd time, I think back in Austin. I'm not even joking. I was so obsessed. John, my walls in my middle school bedroom
Were you like those girls screaming at the Beatles?
Yes, but it was Michael Crawford. And Andrew Lloyd Webber, I shit you not, I had both of their birthdays circled on my little day planner.
Nice.
I had a poster where I had found all these clippings from, because there were clippings everywhere. There would be pictures in People magazine of clips of the show. Everywhere I would find these, they'd clip them out. I had a poster. I had my best friend in middle school and I were both obsessed. And we made jewelry that was look like from clay and the stuff you put in the oven that was like the Phantom masks and roses and like all that crap. I still have this shit. I kid you not that I just cleaned out a storage unit. I just moved from Austin to Albuquerque.
Patti and her storage unit.
Still have my Phantom of the Opera jewelry.
I love that. I love that you still have that.
Nerd.
So
I have the pop-up book still.
Okay,
yes.
so I remember before going to New York. I remember the pop-up book. Before going to New York, I remember having to do research of like some of the souvenir shops around Broadway, and there was one like specific thing that like this is where you get the Phantom shit. And I remember calling them in my little Southern accent voice up to New York City. And I'm like, hey, do you have any Phantom of the Opera stuff? And have you ever seen that Simpsons episode where, like, Homer sees something on TV and, like, limited supply, and he calls, he's like, I need this thing. And behind him, it's this warehouse just full of all this shit.
Just that.
And they're like, yeah, we got a couple. It was kind of like that. I'm like, do you have any Phantom stuff? Yeah, we got a little bit. I mean, that's all they had.
Phantom for you.
It's so crazy because now you can just click on anything and get whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. Back in the 80s, back in my day, I mean, you just like literally, I don't even remember how I like went through the steps to I probably had to go to the library and go, what is around Times Square that, would have, and I have no clue how I even found it. But.
You lucked out. Do you remember? So I became like Broadway obsessed, and it started with Phantom of the Opera, literally, and then I was Andrew Lloyd Webber obsessed, and I collected all Andrew Lloyd Webber. So I would go because I would get a little, what do you call it? Money from my parents. What do you call that? God.
Little pocket change.
Little pocket, some running around money, and we would go to the mall. We would go to the CD store, and it was $20 to get a regular CD at that time. And they had, but then they would have the original cast recording, 2 CDs. Oh, I got to save my money, so I got to spend $40 to get 2 CDs. Had the original London cast, I had the original Broadway cast, had the double CD, had the single CD, had and then I collected every Michael Crawford solo album. I collected every Sarah Brightman solo album. Well,
I would remember coming home from school and I would just play the CD over and over. And
my mom, I went through CDs.
My mom was like, I am so tired of hearing that screaming woman.
Yes, I swear my mom said that too.
Oh my God!
If you got the CDs or the tapes, I also had them on tape. I had to have every kind of media at that time, which was tape or CD.
Well, you got to have the tape for your car.
Well, I had the tape first because it was cheaper, and then I wore the tape out. So then I had to go buy the CD, and then I had to go rebuy the tape. Anyways, I literally still have these, the original ones I had from way back when. But inside the little booklet that would come with the musical, there was, for libretto, it was no money. It was like, you can ask for a libretto here, mail something here, return address.
I remember that, and I may have done that too.
Librettos from the Phantom of the Opera, and it would be the whole script, beautiful with pictures, and it was free.
Yeah.
So I would I have 2 of them because I wore one of them out. I had to get another Phantom one. How do you wear it out? Like it was like a porno mag for me. Like, what does that mean? I somehow wore out my Phantom of the Opera libretto. And so I also had the Les Mis one. I had Aspects of Love.
I forgot about Aspects of Love.
Yeah, and you could just, I could write in, Miss Saigon was another one I had. And I still have them. I moved them out of the storage unit.
Yep. Whoops.
So ridiculous.
You should put those, what you still have, those like the larger thing, the protective things for like comic books, they have them for magazines and so forth. You should put that in there and protect those. So
seal those things up somewhere. Yeah, but I had the book that was the whole story of the show and the creation of the show. Gorgeous pictures. All talk about how they choreographed it, how they made the wigs and stuff, and I was so upset.
Well, like some of our sets for Weird City,
we're very similar.
We're very right. Because, like, well, no, they took inspiration because we had zero money,
right?
And like I remember being so like inspired by like the Phantom had those huge curtains.
Yeah.
And they would just kind of pull them back and it'd just be a black set with some furniture and these beautiful curtains. And I'm like, even Demented features, like I kind of like took inspiration, like just make things kind of simple.
Yeah.
I mean, ours were nowhere near like, I mean, they were like they were two Walmart curtains probably sewn together.
No, we did a pretty decent job of making things look better than what they were. I remember your first set for Demented features. I was in your garage.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you had the fancy, you did. You had some fabric done in it looks great.
I took, because I was trying to make like a padded like insane asylum cell.
Right.
So I just got canvas and like painted it kind of, to look gross. And then you had like pictures of horror hosts everywhere.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was the whole...
And then I remember like, oh God, this is cramped and crowded. And then it went to like a backdrop with the curtains. Because I got like photo curtains. That was actually my favorite set. But things just I was always trying to reinvent the wheel over the years. And then now I'm like, I'm just gonna rip off Elvira's set. Candlesticks and a place to sit. That's all you need.
Simplicity. Why try to go
and I mean it works. It's just like, okay, candles.
That's what you need.
So I mean, and then like if you have guests, you put another chair there and they sit down and you call it a day.
Gotta add a couple candles.
That's right. Add
Got
a couple.
Guest.
Yeah. So.
Yes. See,
but
I was very proud of Weird City that we made shows that looked great on the shoestringiest budget.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was our whole thing, was how can you, I think every show that we did, each show, the budget of the show was at best $3,000.
Yeah.
$3,000.
Now I'd kill for a $3,000 budget. But,
kill to be able to do a show for I can't do a show for less than 30.
Yeah. So, like, the thing about Austin is, like, we used to have all of these little theaters that you could go rent.
Actual venues.
And, venues. So, like, we'd never had a permanent home. And they all, like, one by one started getting closed, and they would bulldoze them down and build, whatever they build. Condos. Parking lots. And so, like, there came a point where it's like we were either didn't physically have a space to perform, or the
whole budget went to rent.
The whole budget went to rent. And it's just like,
that is still the way.
I mean, I'm sure it is.
Oh,
but it just like, people that want to create something, it's just becoming almost nearly impossible because you can't do it anymore.
Yeah, the Austin theater community has been pretty resilient and pretty creative, and what they do is they'll a lot of times, find a space, something like, oh, I'm doing a show in a furniture warehouse.
Right.
Like moving things around, doing it outside, doing all sorts of crazy things. But, that doesn't, you have to be doing a certain type of theater or able to do a certain thing to be able to be like that.
Right,
or be super creative. Like Weird City could not exactly we needed a theater space. So some shows just needed
Well, I
space.
know that, like, our goal was to do Rocky Horror at some point.
Yeah, and we were doing, the whole point, we had our mission was to produce shows that were fun and of a certain type that brought in people like us.
Right.
Who, in those cases, didn't go to live theater.
Right.
Like, they would never have gone to live theater. They were like, Night of the Living Dead, I love that movie. I want to go see
We absolutely carved out our niche because,
we had a niche.
I mean, and some of the other theater companies, from what I understand, kind of look down at us because, like, oh, you're doing Sherlock Holmes, you're doing Night of the Living Dead. Fuck, you know, we're doing Shakespeare. Go do your fucking Shakespeare. Everybody does that.
Yeah.
And you're going to get, you know, the blue-haired old ladies that clutch their pearls over that shit.
We were absolutely fine. We were not doing high-minded theater by any stretch of the imagination.
And we were not pretending that we were either.
Yeah.
We were up there having fun. And, you know, I look back at some of those videos and, like, some of it, I'm like, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
And some of it, you know, the acting was like, wow, we could have done better. But
yeah. But
like,
also part of our mission was also getting people involved who didn't do theater as actors too. So
that's
anybody
true.
could join us. So we were trying to like mentor other people and get people involved and get people sucked into theater like we had been.
Right.
So, you know, we knew there was, you know, not exactly the best performances all the time, 100% of the time, but
you know, we had fun doing it.
We did. We had a bunch of people who really wanted to do that stuff. So it was great. And yeah, we come on. Any chance you get to eat intestines live on stage, right in front of an audience member, especially in the little tiny Hyde Park Theater or something.
Yeah.
So great.
So you have told me a show that really like influenced you and scared you. I think you said you saw it at St. Edward's. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I don't know which one you're talking about. The first show I ever saw that got me into you can do that, and you can do that in theater was actually the Sondheim. What the hell? Oh my God, the barber.
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd. Jesus Christ. Was watching Sweeney Todd on PBS when they had the Age of Wayans the first time, and I was like, you know, like 7 years old. So it was around the same time that I started getting into horror that I saw this musical.
Yeah.
And this was live theater, and I was like, oh, I thought live theater was all Shakespeare at that time.
Right,
and I was like, wait,
right.
Mixing my two favorite things. There's blood, and they're killing people. This is amazing. That was my first really big, like, oh shit, you can do that in theater.
I love Sweeney Todd, and like, that's one of those roles I would love to play. Because I think, especially at my age and size now, I think I would be really good in that role.
Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah.
What was it you were thinking of that I told you about?
So, now I can't remember the damn name of it, the rocking chair.
Oh, the Woman in Black.
Woman in Black.
No, I did that at Plano Repertory Theater. That's the first time I heard about it. It was right after it had been in London and stuff. We were doing it. The Woman in Black, amazing show. So simple, but we literally scared an audience member. She peed her pants. She wet her pants in the front row.
I don't love having to clean it up.
I know. I was like, ooh, I'm going to take that as a badge of honor. I made an audience member pee themselves.
Nice.
So good. Yes, the Woman in Black. Yes, I introduced you to the Woman in Black, basically.
And then, like, you know, we went to go see Daniel Radcliffe in it, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, because Hammer, like, reinvented itself.
The first Hammer film, coming back.
So, I loved that film.
I did, too. I thought that was one of those movies that I thought was made for you and I.
Oh, yeah.
They did that for us.
So,
100%.
What is another... Oh, okay, so I remember when we were little... Frankenstein was going to be at one of the community theaters, and I begged and begged and begged to go. And of course, you know, I wanted it to be the movie, and it is absolutely not. And I mean, I remember it being like, okay, when are we going to see Frankenstein? Because it took for goddamn ever. This is a stage play, and I don't even remember what version it was, but. Then I remember, you know, I'm sure it was the part where the monster comes in and is going to kill Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. But I remember either being just completely bored with it until that moment, and then it scared the shit out of me.
Oh, well, finally, they got you.
I also remember my older brother, did A Christmas Carol. And we went to go see it. I don't think I had ever been exposed to A Christmas Carol yet.
Interesting.
That's how young I was. And like I loved Marley and the Chains, and like all of it was it was intriguing.
Yeah.
But then they had the Ghost of Christmas Yet to come out, and it was this puppet. Oh. But it was as tall as the proscenium. Of the stage. And then, like, I'm sure somebody puppeteered it, and like it had the arm that came, I remember like getting out of my seat in the theater and kind of crawling down into like the foot area, you know,
I'll be down
because
here.
it
if you need
scared
me.
me
Wow.
that badly.
Honestly, one of the scariest movies I remember as a kid was the George C. Scott version of Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, yeah.
Just so scary. And that's wowza.
That is my favorite Marley. That's
Yes.
Frank Finley.
Oh yeah,
Frank Finley also played Professor Van Helsing in this BBC Dracula from the 70s that I'm talking about.
Oh, how fun. Look at I knew that. I took it all the way back around.
He is one of the greatest, I'll call back. He is one of the greatest Marleys and probably the greatest Van Helsing I've ever seen. He was such a brilliant actor.
Wow.
Like, I am a huge fan of Frank Finley. Very underrated actor. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, random side tangent.
Please.
While I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera around that age, I would look for any movie that was Phantom something, any book, anything that was Phantom. So that, do you remember when they did the Phantom of the Opera with Robert Englund?
I was going to say the same fucking thing.
Saw that for sure. Went through that whole phase, but I also then discovered Phantom of the Paradise, that Brian De Palma film. Also obsessed with that.
I haven't seen that in years. I need to see that again.
This was your Finley thing. It was William But anyways, that brought it back to mind. I was like, and the reason I did it was Phantom of the Opera. It was a Phantom of the Opera sort of takeoff.
So there was also, who is the actor that died in the mountains of L.A.? And he was in a room with a view. So he did
he was in Boxing Helena.
He did a version of Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, he did. But I was obsessed with him for a long time, and I couldn't remember why. That's what it was.
But like, there was no disfigurement or makeup. He just went around killing people.
Yeah,
it was very weird version.
Julian Sands.
I
was going to go look it up, and then I remember Julian Sands. Yes, that's right.
The Robert Englund one was weird too.
Yeah, it was pretty goofy.
And I remember watching that years later, and Christina's friend was Terry Sweeney, who went on to be in Saturday Night Live.
Terry Sweeney? Oh, would you not
I think I'm thinking of the same person. I'm pretty sure. I know if it's not Terry Sweeney, it was or Julia Sweeney. I can't remember her name. But it was somebody that went like later on to Saturday Night Live.
That's wild.
Which I thought was
Did you
funny
see
as hell.
the miniseries Phantom of the Opera in the 90s with Charles Dance?
I did.
Obsessed.
And
also obsessed.
they never showed his face because I remember watching. Well, I remember rewatching it at some point, and I'm like, oh, they never showed his face.
Oh, I don't know. My memory is that they did, but I don't know if they did because I fill in for everything. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I went over to my best friend at the time in middle school, Joy Coney. Shout out to Joy Coney. She's now a obgyn off in Texas doing amazing work with women's health. But anyways, she and I would have to go to each other's house to watch this. Like, I think I was at her house every time. Come over, build our little clay Phantom of the Opera joint.
Yeah.
We wrote, and I still have this too, and this is the weirdest thing to say, but you remember when you guys passed notes in middle school?
Oh, yeah, of course.
She and I created a whole world where I was Christine and she played Eric the Phantom. And we wrote notes to each other as these characters we created, that we were married, and that Raoul was actually the Phantom's butt boy. Like, there was a whole, highly sexualized, of course, because we were fucking 12.
Right.
And hilarious, and I still have these fucking notes.
Of course you do.
That's why I end up in storage unit, because I can't throw anything. I swear to God, I'm not a hoarder.
So, a great, like, little... long story short, I want to see these notes. So in graduate school, we have to write. I'm in screenwriting, and we have to do a short form thing. It would be hysterical to take those and just write a small scene about these girls doing this.
Oh, you should. They're hilarious because we would keep things up.
It's already copywritten, so you can't take my idea.
There's a storyline to it, and then like. Sometimes he was crazy, whatever. And we were adding in, like, there was Saturday Night Live references in it. And the Phantom that she played, the Eric character that she played was like nutty, and it was so funny. It's really funny. Oh
my God.
There was a book that came out around the same time that I discovered as a horny 12-year-old called Night Magic, which is actually a little...
I've heard of that.
Dirty little, romance novel.
Okay.
That kind of follows the only Phantom of the Opera in that this guy had been disfigured, but he meets this girl and they start a relationship. But it was, current day, and he's rich and has a Jaguar and a house. And it's ridiculous now. At the time, also obsessed. And so I read this, was like, oh my God, it's got dirty, dirty, sexy scenes in it. And I passed that one off to Joy, and that became part of our lore too. Did
you guys ever get in trouble? Like, did your teacher ever find any of this stuff? And
we are lucky we didn't, because there was some stuff, I'll tell you what.
Oh my God.
I'm surprised we get,
So anybody ever wonders why we're the twisted, weird people we are? I mean, you're getting the backstory right now.
So wrong. It was good. It was so much fun. I still have those stupid things. I'm curious to go back and see if I could somehow put them in chronological order.
I remember, I wanted to sing these songs and learn them and kind of study them and do all this stuff when I was in high school, taking singing lessons and trying to do all this stuff to be a better actor and everything was so poo-pooed about all this stuff. And then I remember I went very briefly to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York. Our teachers were like, to other people who were singing, these standards at that point, well, have you ever studied this? And it's like, you can study it? People really want you to do that? And I just felt so fucking cheapened and cheated. That's the word I'm looking for.
Aw.
So so I think the moral to the story is, kids, if you want to do something, don't let other people's stupid prejudices over something, including, your directors or whatever you're working with, because everybody's got their own, thing. And I wish I had just grown more confidence more early on and be like, you know what, I'm paying you, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think we have this whole thing, just biases all around, where some art is worthier than other art.
Right.
Or this is art, but that's not art. That's cheap. But, it's all art. And, it fills different needs for different people.
Right.
So
we're
enjoy that.
We're not going to sing Phantom of the Opera. Right. We're going to sing a classic from My Fair Lady instead.
Sorry.
I
said something terrible about Music Man just the other day on the radio. I was being interviewed. I have my own biases too.
Right.
So got it.
I would kill to do the Music Man, or some of these other things. I wouldn't kill. All right, there might have been one time, but it's I have an appreciation for this stuff.
Sure.
But I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, this musical is better than this musical.
Right.
Because, at this point in my life, I'm like, they're fucking musicals. They're all gay camp. So, they are all fodder for a little bit of making fun of. Okay, so we're going to swing back around to Night of the Living Dead. I've told you about this. I don't remember the guy's name, but it's a little independent producer, but he wrote a musical version of Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yes!
And it is screaming out loud, laughing, funny.
Yes. And it's intentionally funny, right?
It's intentionally funny.
I remember. I was looking at that. Yes.
One of the songs, in the radio is the whole communication out to the world, and you get the news bulletins. So they add the song in of the radio, and the whole thing is you're fucked. And when Karen comes back to life she has this whole song. It's just stupid funny.
My child killed me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great. Anyway,
I love it.
Highly recommend it.
When what's her name? Julie Jenny. Julie. Who's the Emily's character?
Judy.
Judy. I see. I was close. I was with
You're
the
close.
I couldn't
You're
remember
close.
the word Judy. When Judy gets her jacket cut. Oh,
Yes.
my jacket's cut.
Oh,
We
my
had our own
jacket's cut.
musical for that.
Yeah.
Back then. My jacket's cut. Favorite. The cellar is the safest
The
place.
cellar is the safest place. We had so much fun doing that. I think,
God, it was so
good. I mean, so Night of the Living Dead, I remember watching that around Halloween at some point, and just, I don't remember how quite I was exposed to it or knew about it. I mean, all the magazines and crap and Fangoria and all that shit I, read.
Right.
I'm sure it came from that. But this is going to be a scary movie, but I'm going to sit down and watch it because it's supposed to be very important culturally. And I remember watching it for the first time. And I mean, I was obsessed with it. And it was just, it's
funny because I was like anti-black and white movies, surprisingly enough, for a while because I was like, well, they're not really scary. Like Dracula wasn't really scary to me, and anything in black and white, I was like, I don't think any black and white movie is just not going to be truly scary. And that one and Psycho were two that I saw. My mom made me watch Psycho. I hadn't watched it. I think it was I was in late middle school when she made me watch Psycho. We watched Bambi and Psycho in this. Long story there, but lots of trauma there. But that, and then I saw Night of the Living Dead. And was just like, I didn't know you could be that grotesque. Because this was like, I saw it around the 80s when we were having slasher films galore. And you went to a horror movie just to see how gross it could get. Could they get the special effects any brutaler and realistic? And then to see Night of the Living Dead in black and white, and it was so gory to me.
Also to have
shocking it that it was scary and real, and then the end
to have the protagonist die at the end.
Yeah,
I mean, because there was just it was like
and I wasn't even caught up with
absolutely
that kind of
hopeless.
stuff at that point. Yes,
it was just
everybody dies.
Everybody dies.
Everybody dies.
So and I mean, I think it was the first time I saw something like that where
Me
it's
too.
like. It wasn't the final girl
there
or something.
There wasn't a happy ending-ish kind of thing that films used to do all the time.
I mean,
somebody's gonna live.
It's like, there's still a shred of hope.
Right.
But like they just completely got rid of that. So.
Yeah. Oh, and it's so good for that. And so, genius film.
So anyway, that's, part of my obsession with that. I recognize the film has its problems. But
like what?
Like what? So as we're driving on our little road trip, I'm looking at my my GPS. I'm like, oh, I'm in a turning lane and I shouldn't be in a turning lane. So
oopsie poopsies.
That's all right. We're getting so passionate about
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead. What is another either play or movie or something or book that you were exposed to that really influenced you?
Oh gosh, we've covered so many of them because Dracula, any Dracula, Nosferatu, any vampire stories were also, those were probably my first real obsession before I discovered the Phantom of the Opera. So as a kid, it was always Dracula. It was Bela Lugosi books, pictures of any of those things I really loved. I read Dracula as a child. Read the first, not like a child's version. It was the book.
Yeah.
Just it was a shorter. What do you call it? It didn't include
abridged.
The abridged version.
Right.
That didn't include all the, anyways, the Demeter and all that stuff.
Right.
But I was hooked, and I read a lot as a kid. So, and we had those little book fairs. That's actually how I got to Phantom of the Opera. First is that at a book fair, they had classics, and I saw this, and I thought, Phantom of the Opera, I read a little bit, and I was like, is this a vampire story? I was constantly trying to find hidden ways they told me stories were about vampires. They would talk about a dark character or something, and I was like, oh, they're just trying not to give away that there's a vampire in this story. Yeah,
so it's interesting you bring up book fairs, because this is one of the things I was going to be like, we're going to segue into my story. But it's true. We were exposed to these scholastic book fairs.
Loved it.
And then I remember getting like a little collection of illustrated Edgar Allan Poe stories.
Nice.
And one of them was Cask of
Amontillado.
Amontillado.
Another one, yes.
Yeah. So one of them was Cask of Amontillado, and I remember, you know, getting this book like at the end of the day, and like we had a moment like we could, you know, read through our little books, and it was going to be soon time to go home. But I remember reading through Cask of Amontillado and the illustrations of the guy getting walled up, and I was just like, you know, imagining what that would be like, and it literally scared the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
And so that became an obsession with Edgar Allan Poe. Another one was like a book of vampire stories, and like one of it was Dracula's Guest.
Yes.
And the other one was the first chapter of Varney the Vampire.
Yes. I think we got the same books.
And that first chapter of Varney the Vampire is incredibly frightening and scary because it's, you know, the storm and the vampires coming through the window to get the girl. And I was obsessed with that for years until I found the larger work of it.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of, like, when I bring up Varney the Vampire, most people look at me like I'm insane. Like, they have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it was one of the most influential
I remember the drawings.
Stories. Yeah.
Pictures from it, because I was obsessed with pictures, obviously.
So,
I can read, I swear.
Anyway.
I looked at pictures a lot. And not even to mention, like, with the Scholastic Book Fair, that's where we got our little, scary stories to tell in the dark. Was there,
yeah.
Terrifying pictures again. I do read. Like, I loved all
But I mean, that kind of
stuff.
stuff. But it's that artwork, too, that just became iconic. And it's like just completely etched into our minds.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, you know, a lot of those super conservative moms out there like got their panties in a tiff because, you know, some of it was I don't really think anything was graphic or inappropriate, but it was creepy.
It can be creepy, and it didn't take anything like in that book that I was talking about, callback way back, that I had that was torn apart and falling apart with just pictures from movies. There was one picture that it was, I want to say it was Abominable Dr. Fives, but it was just a guy's skull face.
Yeah.
And just that, I was like terrified.
Yeah.
Like, I would avoid certain pages at night.
Yeah.
When I was looking at the book when it was bedtime and I was looking through my book, I would still look at this book, but I knew which ones to not look at because those bothered me more. Those got me creeped out way more than others.
Yeah.
I was fine with the werewolves, but I got to avoid the zombie section or whatever it was.
I think I was the same way. I had some things that, like, I was like, I don't... Like, for example, I think I could deal with the Bela Lugosi Dracula, but I could not deal with the Christopher Lee Dracula.
Yes. There was always blood involved. Like, you could see blood
and the
on
eyes and all this stuff.
And he looked vicious. He looked like an animal.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love it so much.
So,
I didn't have a problem looking at vampires at all, ever.
I mean, you know, I loved it. And
such a child. We are driving.
We're driving around a curve, and
So that made me thinking about looking at the pictures and et cetera, et cetera. What were the VHS tapes, the pictures on the VHS tapes when you would go to the video store as a young
I've got a good one about
see
this.
ones that like just blow your mind.
And I mean,
your folks didn't let you have it.
that was your,
Yes.
like, you know, you can pick one movie.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you can pick two, but usually you can pick one movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you cannot tell what the movie is, so you like look at the cover art, and if the cover art speaks to you, that's what you get. Okay, so a quick story.
Yes.
Do I do that for one thing?
Yes, number one, yes.
Okay.
You do that.
We're again. I went the wrong way.
We're getting way too into this.
Everybody's like, do not go on a road trip with John. So we went to the Blockbuster video or Hollywood.
Right.
It may have been the
Video.
Hollywood video.
Yeah.
But I remember getting, I would pick out horror movies.
Oh, great.
I remember getting once Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, thinking, because I think I was going through my ironic stage, but I'm like, wow, this is a shitty movie. But there was one where I picked this movie, and I don't remember. I at the time didn't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember at the end there were zombies and a girl, and the zombie thing was pretty good. Fast forward, I did not know what this movie was for 30 years. And I would go to conventions and I'd kind of ask around with just a very vague recollection of what this movie was. And I remember I would pick certain movies and I'm like, that's not it.
That wasn't it. Yeah.
And you'd go through the streaming services and that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Well, maybe a year ago, I get Shudder.
Yes.
And so, you're kind of looking, if you don't let me through here, you piece of shit, what is wrong with you?
Okay.
On this episode, John gets road rage. I mean, there's no reason why she couldn't let me out
people,
there.
be nice. Let people in.
What an asshole.
Well, the truck is letting you in at least. At least you get to go after her.
What a bitch.
You don't want to be... You don't want to be...
I hope you get in a goddamn accident.
Oh, no, because it'll be with you. Stop.
Your fucking Toyota Camry. License plate VVL72.
You better edit that shit out.
Okay, so fast forward 30 years, I'm trying to find this movie. And on Shudder, I'm like, okay, let's pick a movie to watch. And then I find it.
What was it? I want to know.
It was called Spookies.
Spookies?
And I watched this movie,
recognize this.
and
That's crazy.
every scene, every horribly acted, awful scene that goes by, your memory starts kind of filling in blanks, and you're like, this is the movie. This is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
And I have spent 30 years trying to find this movie. And then at the very end, sure enough, there's the, very anticlimactic little zombie bit. And, and I'm just like, wow, have I wasted time trying to find this movie.
Well, I found the movie. Yes, I have been there. Yeah, so I recall my brother and I would both go into the video store. Actually, H-E-B at the time had a video store at the front. And every time my mom went grocery shopping, that was when we finally didn't complain, because we would go to the video store and just look through all the videos.
Yeah.
And look for scary looking movies. I dropped my phone under my chair, so I'm having to wriggle and it's not happening. Whoa, I moved my chair, sorry. So I remember, my brother Greer and I would both go and try to find the scariest picture. Like, what was a movie that Mom would never let us rent? Right. No R-rated horror movie. And I burned into my brain and had changed my chemistry, was the backside of a little movie called In the Company of Wolves. Did you ever see that?
I've never seen this, but I have heard about
it. Yes, and it has, what's his name, who's in Stephen Rea from every Neil Jordan movie.
Yeah.
And it actually has, Angela Lansbury is in it.
Okay.
It's very much a highly sexualized coming of age, Little Red Riding Hood thing, but it's several different werewolfy stories. Right. And the one that Stephen Rea is in, there's always this one, and actually, what's the one where the London werewolf?
American Werewolf in London.
Thank you. I couldn't get the title right. American Werewolf in London also had a little picture of the transformation on the box, and it was terrifying. So in The Company of Wolves, there is a picture on the back of the box of Stephen Rea after he's getting killed or something, but his hand is dripping, it's falling apart, and it's just like skeletal hands, and it's this guy staring at a skeletal hand, just screaming, and it looks so horrifying, etched into my brain forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was one of them. Also, any and all of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre ones always had.
So the first one really was
pictures.
terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one is the best. My brother is obsessed with the really loony one.
The second
one?
Yeah.
My brother is absolutely. He's got that poster in his living room. He is a
the second
40-year-old
one
man.
has some really great set design. I will give it that much.
Yeah. So anyway, and it's the one with the poster that looks like the oh gosh, the 80s movie. God, I'm bad at this. The 80s movie with the Brat Pack in it, where they're
Which one?
The one where they're all in not Summer School. In their
Breakfast Club?
yes, it's a takeoff of the Breakfast Club.
Oh, okay.
The poster is a takeoff of the Breakfast Club.
Oh, I see.
Where they're
what
sitting there, it's all in the same pose.
I understand what
but
you're
it's the
alluding
family
to now. Yeah. Okay.
And I love that. My brother. Anyways, that's what my brother has had in his living room.
So I kind of miss in some ways being able to discover things organically like that, because now it's just like, and that's the other thing. It's like they're taking away movies on streaming, or
taking away the physical media.
Right. So I think I talked about this earlier. The Encyclopedia of Horror. This book I got when I was little. So of course they had pictures from all these different films and anthologies and you name it. And some of them, I would see the pictures, and I would not discover the film until like decades later.
Sure, yeah.
But there was one British anthology film, and the picture was these vampires and this guy hanging upside down with a spigot coming out of his neck.
Oh wow, what is this?
And then I cannot remember the name of it, but it's part of an anthology. And so I saw this a few years ago, and it is as disturbing as you imagine it would be. These vampires, like, they basically have this pub, and they kill this traveler and hang him upside down and put a spigot in his damn neck. But then I kind of did some quick Google research. At least that part of the anthology had been banned for years.
Really?
So it's
funny.
like...
it's so funny how our tastes have changed and things that they have allowed now that they never used to allow. Because I remember the 80s is when we were doing real slasher films, and it was a gore fest.
Oh, yeah.
That was what you went to the horror movies for, not to actually be scared, but the scare was the gore and that kind of thing. And that was... what body parts could they chop off?
Right.
Whoa,
what inventive way can we kill somebody?
Yeah, and hello, Tom Savini, thanks, you did all of that.
Yeah,
That's half you doing that stuff. Love him. But, it was a little over the top and a little out of control.
Right.
And
especially as the 80s wore on, they're always trying to top themselves.
Right.
So it, ventured into camp very quickly.
And it wasn't very realistic, a lot of it. It especially got more and more less realistic.
Right.
But then you had things like the zombie film with the eyeball into the splinter. Horrifying.
Well, I mean, and one of the things that made that so horrifying was, first of all, the camera work.
Yes.
But secondly, they used a real, goat's or cow eyeball or sheep eyeball.
I think so, yeah.
And, so...
It's so slow.
Oh, yeah. It made you feel that one.
I could not watch the Italian zombie movies for the longest time because they gave me the ick so bad.
Yeah.
And they really scared me. The American ones that were coming out every other day, I'm like, oh, I'm all over it. Fine, those are fine, great. Yeah. Couldn't do the Italians because they terrified me.
Have you ever seen Cannibal Holocaust?
I have not seen. I've started it. I have not finished.
So it's not a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's real animal torture.
There's real animal stuff going on. And that's what is so awful about it. I could not watch those scenes.
Yeah, sure.
The human stuff, it's make-believe, as Mr. Rogers used to say.
Well, though they didn't know that at the time.
But they did not. But, I mean, that was the whole... Blair Witch kind of phenomenon back, in the 70s.
Right, a different version.
But yeah, it's not a fun movie to watch at all.
Yeah, that's the only way I hadn't seen it. I remembered hearing about it as a kid. I had the opportunity to see it a long time ago when it was still not banned, but it was like harder to get a hold of.
Right.
Pre-streaming,
and
DVD.
And that's also one of those movies where like there's no hope at the end.
Oh, really? Yeah. And we started it, but we went on to something else, and I never ended up going back and watching it.
It's gross.
I think it was a sleepover or something to that effect that I saw some of it.
And it's, I think I watched it just because I kept hearing about it, and I kind of knew what I was getting into and like kind of what scenes I needed to avoid and when, they were coming up.
Yeah, I don't know if I could really watch it now.
One of the things I really do love about horror films is, they, unless they're a period piece, they take place in the time in which they were filmed. So they're really great little time capsules into like the 70s or the 60s. And
I like the 70s version of a period film. That's my favorite thing.
Oh, yeah.
Hammer films where it's like, I love the 70s Hammer film. Oh, it's the 1800s and this is what people look like.
Right. And you've got, you've got this, 68 looking hairdo on this 1890s.
Big bouffant hairs on these women in the 1850s.
So I will not mention names. I will not mention names. But when we were going to do Curse of the House of Usher, is that the right one?
Yes, Curse of the House of Usher is what we did. Yes.
We were going to have one director. And, before we could set a budget or have a meeting and talk about, different design choices and aesthetic choices that we, were going to do, or what the director's input was going to be, they just decided, before even meeting one, they were going to rent costumes and, cast and, make all those choices. And I'm like, no. It does not quite work that way. But, it was going to be...
Yes, those costumes.
Fluorescent. I'm trying to think of like a really bright, sunny musical.
It was day glow costumes.
And, I mean, it was just like, do you understand the material?
Yeah, we were doing something different. I don't think they got the weird city vibe quite right. They were eager, though. That's for damn sure.
I mean, God bless them.
Not directing that show.
They did not direct that show.
You probably built half the costumes.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff.
But,
I want my Nosferatu dress back. That was such a good dress. I know you sold that dress. You sold it.
Did I? Okay. Well, I mean, I ebb and flow in my finances, and I'm like, there comes a point where I'm like, I'm going to sell shit so that I can fucking live.
It was such a good dress. The blue one.
But I remember, we did have a storage unit at some point, but for a long time, my garage was like where we stored everything. And my husband was like, I'd love to park my car at the garage at some point. So it was like, oh, well, okay.
Side notes. Did I tell you about how I got rid of my storage units, which include 90% Weird City stuff in them at the time, too?
I kept going, throw this shit away?
I had those storage units from 2008 until...
We could have produced 40 shows with the rent you paid at that point.
2008 until 2024.
Oh, my God.
I just got rid of them before I left for Albuquerque. That's why I got rid of them.
God.
But I had a woman who has a consignment shop. She does a bunch of pop-ups and does vintage stuff. I was like, can you come? She's a friend of my brother's.
Come get this sofa that was in our 2011 version of Night of the Living Dead.
Full of rats. Absolutely not. No, that went into the trash. So I said, can you come look at these storage units and, see if you want to take anything and maybe we can do consignment. And Anyway, side note, it worked great. I'm still getting monthly Venmos from her.
Well, that's
for
nice.
things. Yeah, it's worked
I
out.
was expecting her to go, none of this.
What?
What in the fuck?
But there was one thing she did take. She was like, what is this gravestone that is sitting here broken in half in your storage unit?
Wow.
Baby, she took it.
Okay, so...
Posted about it on her Instagram. And people were like, she was going to sell it. And people were like, whoa, 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 that seems sketch. So she had a friend who does kind of family genealogy stuff.
I tried
to research it.
I tried to research
They
it.
found the family.
Oh, they did?
They did. And it was somebody like way out in East or West Texas. I can't even remember. And they contacted the last next of kin person. It was like a cousin. Like, they really did genealogy work to find
Wow.
this person. And they really were not interested. But anyways, I just wanted you to know that that work was finally done, that damn gravestone is still
Nice. That's crazy. I mean, I literally... So, for those of you listening, I'll give you a little context.
That's a very strange context.
So, Patty's brother, if I remember the story correctly, Patty's brother Greer...
It was a friend of Greer's.
Or a friend of Greer's used to clean out apartments or something.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Right.
And so they found this headstone of this baby.
It was a child
In like
gravestone.
somebody's
It had the
apartment.
years. And the years were like 1890 to 91
Right.
or something. I mean, it was
old. It was old.
It looked perfectly fine.
But like,
Brand new.
so
But it's a gravestone.
I don't know.
It's heavy.
Greer got it, and then you got it,
Yeah.
and then for whatever reason, I got it.
Oh, yeah, because I took it to your house.
So I remember
For Weird City, we could use this, I think.
it was propped up in the back of the garage, kind of like vertically. And I was tinkering with something or painting something, or
You were in the garage.
I was in the garage doing something. And I remember hitting it, and it tipped over and it fell on my toe.
Oh, no. I didn't realize that hit your toe.
And it like not broke my toe, but it
Hurt.
banged up the toenail pretty
was
bad.
heavy.
It was very heavy. And I think that's when it cracked in half.
perfectly in half. Split all the way in half.
So a couple of years later, we sold that house.
And it was cursed.
And I thought, as a gag, underneath the back shed where we kept like the lawnmower and whatever,
Yeah.
because eventually somebody's going to come along and like take that down. I was like, let's bury it underneath this thing.
Just leave it in the attic.
And for some reason in my mind, I thought that I did that.
Oh!
And then I remember telling you about it something like, you're like, no, I still have this.
Yeah, no, it was requested a time I was there that Kevin is really freaked out and would like you to get rid of that gravestone. All right, I'll take it. And I schlepped that thing back to my storage unit. It sat right in the front, too. On the ground, in its two pieces, put back together.
I think it's hysterical that she tried to sell it.
She was like so excited about it.
But like, I
people were like,
did
cool, and then people got upset.
legitimately Google the name and the dates and tried to
I
find
told her
out
that.
who it belonged to.
Yeah,
and I mean, I
straight up
just
said
can't.
that.
I guess I came up. I mean, I wasn't gonna pay for a.
Yeah, this person had genealogy experience. That's
So
what they do, or whatever.
I guess if I could find it and it was convenient,
Right.
But
Very strange.
yeah, baby Grayson. We came across some weird shit in our prop hunting and finding stuff. So
definitely. That was my whole jam, was finding weird shit.
I mean, this isn't always the best way to create a story, but we literally let's just go find a bunch of crazy props and build a story around it.
We did it by costumes. We're like, you know what? I really want to wear a hoop skirt. What's a show that would have a hoop skirt?
Right.
What is the story?
So when we did the original Night of the Living Dead,
That's how Alvita
we
came
went to that vintage store and
Yeah.
and they worked with us.
Yeah, flashback. They're
and
still around.
Yeah, well, it's under new ownership. The
Right.
one we got it from
Yeah, it was a
was
different
crazy.
building even
And anyway, but as Patty hits me, so this is a side. Anyway, the costumes for that show were great because they were period correct.
Yeah.
Side note. So I love antiques, and I've had a couple of antique booths in my time.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of across the board. And like I grew up in Charleston, so I worked for some antique dealers there. And across the board, it doesn't matter what state I'm in or what your vintage item is, whether it's clothing or furniture or whatever. People that deal with this stuff are all crazy. Every single one of them is.
Oh, lunatics. Absolute.
So,
yes.
yes.
I think we're all these very specific kinds of obsessive nerds.
We are.
And
we are.
We all got our thing.
We both love theater, and we love doing it, and we love creating it. But it's like our influences. I'm proud of the work that we have done and based it on things that we're passionate about.
Yeah.
I remember being at Texas State, and after I had graduated, I went back and did this acting workshop because I was quote unquote invited. I was invited to come pay all this money to take this dumb, stupid workshop.
Oh.
So I did it because I was still like, well, I'm trying to break into the theater community.
Right.
I brought up that I was creating a stage adaptation of Night of the Living Dead. And I remember my professor just being very, oh, well, John,
Right.
And I'm just like, you know what? Quit shaming people for the shit that they love.
Yeah.
I know you love Shakespeare, but I absolutely fucking hate it. And, if you really want to get down to brass tacks, Shakespeare was the Night of the Living Dead of their fucking time.
Yes.
It was for
Please get back to that.
a big general audience. So,
Speak more to that.
one of the guest speakers at graduate school, bless him, I cannot remember his name, but he talked about how now, like, because we had to read Waiting for Godot, and we were all going to kind of discuss it as a group. And I'm kind of like, oh, fuck. But, the first thing out of his mouth was the theater community and the theater academics put such weight on this and other plays like it that they're so important.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, they're not. They are fart jokes, basically. That, it's time for us to return to a point where we enjoy theater and stop making something that wasn't so important. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, every theater company.
Okay.
And yes, every theater company's first part of their mission.
I'm getting
should be,
off of Montopoulos.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right here.
Okay, I got you.
Every theater company or arts group that does any sort of performing arts, their first mission truly is to entertain.
Right.
Sorry, you're doing a show for people. There is entertainment value. So, and some shows are just a different kind of entertaining,
Right.
And different people find different things entertaining. So you can have highbrow, lowbrow, high-minded art, performance art, really esoteric stuff. I'm all about it. I love all those kinds of things. I've got my biases about what
I just think
anti-Shakespeare bias as well.
Yeah.
However, if you do Titus Andronicus, I want in.
There you go.
If we did it, that would be the only Shakespeare Weird City would have ever done.
But it's like the older I get, the less value I put on people that are trying to gatekeep certain aspects of things. And I'm just exhausted by it. And I'm just like, let people have fun doing what they want to do.
Yeah, let people
and how they want to do it.
Mm-hmm. There's value in all of those things.
There's
There's value in
all those
Shakespeare.
things.
There's value in, you know, I don't know. I always made fun of it being Arsenic and Old Lace as the
Right.
community theater show, you know. And
Well, I mean,
it's fine.
there is kind of there is kind of this thing where, you know, community theaters kind of gravitate towards certain works and it kind of becomes a cliche.
Right.
I think that's kind of where we get it, because it's like,
the bias for
There-
overly done.
right,
productions.
there is other stuff out there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where Weird City came in. It's like, let's do stuff that isn't over fucking done.
Yeah.
That, like, you know,
Let's
we'll
do stuff
bring-
that's not done at all.
let's not done at all. Let's write new stuff, and, you know, let's see if we can bring in a new audience, because they're like, what the hell is this?
You wanna You want to go over 2 lanes. You
Okay.
want to be in that left. This.
Patty
'cause you're
is,
going to take the exit for
okay.
airport. Oh.
Yes, I know. So, well, I guess on that note, we've kind of discussed theater and kind of put a pin in, like,
We talked the whole way.
we did
from
talk the
Loopers.
whole way, and we're at
pretty
the
good.
very end of our road trip. So, Patty, thank you for joining me
Yay!
on the podcast today. We are on Spotify. We are on YouTube.
Wow.
Probably Apple Podcast. We're getting out there in the world. So share us with the monster kids in your life. And I'm coming out. So until next time, I'm John.
Danvers.
Danvers. And new episodes of Demented Features are coming soon as well. You can check us
Yay.
out at monsterkidplayground.com and dementedfeatures.com.
Yay.
And until next time, we'll see you then.
Bye bye. That was fun.